Greetings. So this is going to be a quick tutorial on how to begin your roller coaster design project. So in front of me I have the paper. As you can see, that's highlighted here is a roller coaster checklist. So this is what you want to try to make sure is being accounted for as you are designing this roller coaster. So again, the roller coaster must begin at 0 and end at 1,000. And then it must be above ground, no higher than 300 feet underground, and then no lower than 100 feet underground. So the first thing that you'll want to do is go ahead and go to geogebra.com, and this is the home page for the website. At the top right, you're going to want to sign in on your account. It should have whatever your first name was. It's going to have that letter up there on the right when you are signed in. That way you can save your graph that you're making for later if you have to stop and come back to it later. So you're going to start graphing. It's going to bring up another window where you're able to where you can start to graph. The first issue is that, again, for our design, it needs to be in between 0 and 1,000. And so right now it's only going from 0 to about 11. So you need to zoom out until you can at least see 1,000 on the x-axis. So you're going to zoom out. You can do that by either using your touchpad or by continuously clicking the magnifying glass here to zoom out. So it looks like we're at about 1,000 right now. So this is pretty good. To start, you want to graph just a simple X. So what this means is that it's creating a line that is going through the origin, and then we want to also have it cross at 1,000. So if you recall from class, to have it cross or to have an x-intercept at 1,000, we need to have a factor of x minus 1,000. So what this will do is we now have this polynomial that's going from 0 to 1,000. It's crossing at both 0 and 1,000, but at the moment, as you can tell, it is way too big. It's either going too far up or too far down. We don't know quite yet. We'd have to scroll up or down to decide. But what we need to do then is to scale it down. And so to scale something down is you have to go to the very front of your function here, of your equation, and start to multiply it by a number less than 1. So maybe a good starting point would be to multiply it by maybe like 0.1. So we are scaling it down by 1/10. And again, that clearly didn't change anything. So let's make this a little smaller. Instead of 0.1, let's make it 0.01. Again, didn't quite help us there. It's still going, it looks like it's going way too far down, as you can see here, but it is starting to flatten out a little bit. So you'll want to continue to change this. And then there we go. It looks like this is something that's a little bit more manageable. But at the moment, it is upside down. We would like to turn it right side up. So if you ever want to flip over a polynomial or kind of flip it across the x-axis, all you have to do is make it negative. So once you make it negative, so putting a negative in the very front, it flips it over, and that way we have something that looks a little bit more like a roller coaster. But this isn't a very interesting roller coaster, and we still need to have maybe to go up and then come down at some point. So what we need to start doing is adding some more factors or some more points where it crosses on the x-axis. So let's say I want it to cross at 300. So to do that, I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to add another factor, x minus 300. And so when I do that, it's now crossing at 0, 300, and 1,000, because I have a 1,000 and 300 as some of factors, and then this x is really just an x minus 0, so that's why it's crossing at 0 here at this point. But we do need it, again, to be scaled down a little bit, so we need to start making this number smaller. So let's see how that helps. Again, a little bit more, so we need to actually make it, let's see, try adding another 0, so 0.0001. And then there we go. It looks like it's still smaller, but still too big. It's going way too high over here. So then we can maybe make it adding another 0 here. That was a little better. It's not going too high, but it's also not going too low. So it's not getting to that negative 1,000 or that negative 100 right here that we can't get below. But again, if you want to continue to make it more interesting, you can start adding some more factors. But again, as you add factors, it's going to have to be scaled down. And so one of those issues is if you continue just to keep on adding zeros to this, eventually the program is just going to read it as 0. It's so small, it's just going to consider 0. So then it's just going to multiply it by 0. It's going to make it a straight line. So we have to get a little creative. What we can do is, let's say I take off one of these zeros here. So it's going to kind of widen it back out, make it a little bit higher. But I can go inside one of these factors, and I want to put a 0.1 in front. But again, what's going to happen is, recall what we did in class, is that if you set that factor equal to 0 and solve for x, that's actually going to make it bigger. And so to compensate, we have to make this 1,000 a smaller number. Let's make it just 100, just a test. And there it goes. It's actually shrinked it down. It's still crossing at 1,000, still crossing at 300, and then still crossing at 0. And so you can start to add in more factors, start changing these numbers also in the inside of these factors. So in the inside of these factors here, you can change those numbers and just to kind of see what you can get. The goal is really just to play with it, try to explore what kind of shapes you can make and try to get a reasonably nice roller coaster that you're happy with. It doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to have all these ups and downs and things like that, but just something that you're happy with that meets within the guidelines given to you on the paper, the overview. Another thing as well is, let's say that I would like to maybe move this roller coaster up or down. So that's actually very simple. At the very end here of your function, you can just add 1,000, or add 100, excuse me. And once you do that, what it will do is actually shift up the roller coaster by 100. And that allows you to shift it up or down. So maybe you have it just going just underneath maybe negative 100. To fix that, you could just add maybe 10 or 20 or 100 to move it up a little bit to get it above that negative 100 point so that it meets the guidelines. So again, just kind of have fun with it, play with the numbers, add some factors to make it a little bit more interesting if you want, and see if you can get a nice roller coaster out of this. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me or ask me in class.